Hello, everyone. My name is William Lane, and I'm a rising senior at the University of Michigan. Over the past couple of years, more attention has been put on the prevalence of brain damage amongst professional, semi professional, college, and high school football players. Recent studies have shown that individuals who play or have played football have a significantly higher chance of developing the neurodegenerative disease known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy, also known as CTE, than those who do not play football. I have been an avid fan of all forms of football my entire life, and with recent studies coming to light in regard to the hazards of playing football, I have started to raise awareness of the potential dangers that come from playing football and the effects that these dangers have on both players and their families alike. Now you might be asking yourself, how does CTE relate to you? Well, it is important for you all to learn about the dangers of playing football and the consequences that come with it in order to evaluate whether or not you should allow your children to play football in the future. I'm going to explain to all of you what chronic traumatic encephalopathy is, what recent studies have shown about the correlation between football and developing CTE is, and specific examples of how CTE has affected the lives of former football players and their families alike. To begin, CTE is a neurodegenerative disease that is found in individuals who have suffered frequent hits to the head as a result of playing extremely physical sports. Symptoms of CTE was initially observed in boxers throughout the 1920s by British neurologist MacDonald Critchley, who wrote a paper on it titled Punch-Drunk Syndromes, the Chronic Encephalopathy of Boxers. While CTE was initially thought to only affect boxers and not other athletes, further research proved the contrary and found that CTE was actually prevalent amongst individuals who participated in any high-contact sport. Players from a wide variety of high-contact sports have been diagnosed with various forms of the neurodegenerative disease, such as Bob Probert, a hockey player, Ollie Matson, a football player, Sugar Ray Robinson, a boxer, Joe Louis, another boxer, Andrew Martin, a wrestler, and countless more. Now, chronic traumatic encephalopathy is a neurocognitive disease that develops throughout 4 stages. Obtained from a PBS Frontline article, these images to my right show the progression of CTE in an individual's brain. However, before diving into these images, you all must first understand that chronic traumatic encephalopathy causes a protein known as tau to form around the brain's blood vessels, which interrupt normal functioning and eventually kill nerve cells. As you can see to my right, in stage 1, isolated spots of tau build up around the frontal lobe. In stage 1, it is hard to see any immediate effects on the individual. However, as the brain enters stage 2, symptoms such as rage, impulsivity, and depression start to appear as a result of tau proteins affecting more nerve cells in the frontal lobe. Then, in stage 3, the tau protein expands from the top of the frontal lobe to the side parts of the brain, which leads to confusion and memory loss in an individual. Lastly, in stage 4, the tau deposits take over a majority of the brain and result in cognitive functions being severely limited, as well as the brain shrinking to half of its size. Imagine how hard it is to think if your brain is half the size that it's supposed to be. It's unbelievable. Recent studies and research have shown that there is an extremely high correlation between playing football and developing CTE. In an interview with Time magazine, Dr. Bennet Omalu, the person responsible for finding the link between CTE and football players, famously stated that he believes over 90% of American football players suffer from some form of CTE. While most fans of football were extremely skeptical of this claim at the time, myself included, recent studies have shown that Dr. Omalu's opinion was actually correct. It's insane, right? The Los Angeles Times recently cited a study conducted by Boston University on the brains of deceased football players, which found that among the 202 brains studied, 177 of them had CTE. This visual, to my right, accurately categorizes and depicts the results from the study conducted by Boston University. Out of the 202 players studied, 111 were NFL players, 53 were college players, 14 were semi-professional players, 8 were Canadian Football League players, 14 were high school players, and 2 were pre-high school players. As you can see to the graph on my right, 110 out of the 111 NFL players were diagnosed with CTE. That means that 99% of the test subjects actually had some form of CTE, just showing how prevalent CTE is amongst football players. Additionally, as you can see, 9 out of the 14 semi-professional players, 7 out of the 8 Canadian Football League players, and 3 out of the 14 high school players were all diagnosed with some form of CTE. PBS Frontline cited another study conducted by researchers with the Department of Veterans Affairs and Boston University, which found that out of the 165 deceased individuals who played football that were studied, 131 of them had CTE. Now think about the statistics I just provided you all with. A majority of those who were studied had CTE, confirming Dr. Omalu's theory. It's pretty remarkable. Lastly, I'm going to provide all of you with specific examples of how CTE has affected the lives of former football players and their families alike. The concerning aspect of CTE is that it is very hard to identify individuals while they are still alive, and yet strongly influences various aspects of an individual's personality and cognitive abilities. There are a wide variety of athletes who are diagnosed with CTE after they died and are thought to be the main contributing factor that led them to their death. In an article written by Chris William for The Sportster, he talks about the top 20 notorious cases of CTE amongst professional athletes. In 2012, Kansas City Chief linebacker Jovan Belcher had shot his girlfriend and then himself at the young age of 25, leaving their shared daughter parentless and alone in the world. After studies were conducted on his brain, examiners found that he indeed suffered from a severe form of CTE. Another example is Junior Seau, one of the best linebackers of all time who played in the NFL for 20 whole years. He committed suicide in 2012 by shooting himself in the chest. His family had said that he rarely missed time due to head injuries and would still play even though he had concussions. Doctors would later determine that Junior Seau's brain had significant signs of CTE, contributing to his mild depression that eventually led to his suicide. The last example is Nathan Stiles, who is known as the youngest deceased football player having suffered from CTE. He was in high school when he sustained a serious impact to the head while already having a concussion that led him to his death soon after. At just 17 years old, his autopsy revealed that he was already showing signs of significant CTE. I hope you all now have a better understanding of what CTE is, how prevalent it is amongst football players, and how severe of an effect it has on individuals and their families. After learning about the various dangers that come with playing football and how prevalent CTE is amongst football players, I hope all of you reevaluate your view of the sport due to the dangers that it brings with it. The recent studies that I have presented show that individuals who play football at any level, not just professionally, have a significantly high chance of developing the neurodegenerative cognitive disease known as CTE, which eventually leads to severe mental disabilities and possibly death. Regardless of whether or not you're an avid football fan and don't want to believe in the dangers of playing football, it is essential to embrace the results of these studies so that you can make an appropriate decision for your children in order to protect their mental and physical health for the future. Thank you for your time.